All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. This is the special edition of our whatever our show is with Jay from Sci Trek and the brand new Tachyon Pulse podcast. Jay is over in the UK. Where exactly are you, Jay?
And on my address? That's a bit wrong.
No, I like. Are you in London? Are you in
I,
Scotland, like Alexander? Are you in
no, so
some other
I'm
part of
right
the
in the
UK
middle of
we don't
England.
know? You're
So
in
right in the middle of England, not far from Birmingham, but we call Birmingham. About half an hour from there. So my town, if ever you Google it, my town is called. I live in a town called Telford, and the world's first iron bridge was built here. That's literally all we're famous for. But we're not far from the Welsh border, so all the Shropshire Hills and things. And I live in a really beautiful area actually, because like we're quite a dense town, but then literally you drive like 30 minutes in any direction, and you're in proper like English countryside.
Oh wow!
So I live in a beautiful area, the lowest population of any county in England. I live in.
Now, the only frames of reference I have, I've only been in pretty much in two places, in London, and then I would go up to Nottingham because of Games Workshop, Warhammer.
Yeah.
Their headquarters is up there. So I don't. Those are the only two places.
If you do about the same again, you'd hit me. Roughly the same direction, actually.
Gotcha.
Okay. It's pronounced Nottingham, though not Nottingham. Just like
Nottingham. So, well, good. Listen, we are here, and we're gonna play a clip for everyone. We are here to talk about Lower Decks because there are more videos about this, and most of them piss me off. So I love listening to everyone and go, God, a lot of it is colored by what people actually feel about Star Trek Discovery leads them to what they want to find in the news. But let's play. Let me open up and play this clip, which I've just watched the Lower Decks episodes in preparation for this. I kind of saw the clips, but certainly what we saw out there was relevant. So let's play it, and we can talk about it a little bit. But here's the important part.
The rift is surrounded by a Schrödinger possibility field. The S field completely remaps matter into other possibilities from the multiverse.
Okay, so what we saw there was Klingons in Lower Decks universe being transformed into Discovery Season 1 Klingons.
Yeah.
And tell me, I'm setting the stage here for everyone. If I understand what I'm hearing on the internet, people are basically saying that means that it's not canon, which I don't even know how people get there. But that's what some people are saying. And some people are simply saying, no, it's canon. Discovery is canon because it's on screen. It is Star Trek. However, it's a different universe than Lower Decks, which people are saying is Prime Universe, which I'm not convinced of either. But am I right that these are the two arguments we're hearing? One is saying it's not, Discovery is not canon. The other saying, yes, it's canon. It's just not, it's just in an alternate universe.
It's not even that they've been saying that it's not canon. They were saying that a lot of the videos are, it's official, it's not canon, which makes it sound like Alex Kurtzman came out and made a statement, which obviously isn't accurate. It does imply, I when I spoke about this in my video, I went, on the Tachyon Pulse podcast, which is a brand new channel she's got to subscribe to immediately. Only been going a week. But I basically went around the garden on this. And I started off with what I had the same argument is what's canon. And I said, well, I don't think you can say it's not canon unless you're going to say, well, J.J. Abrams' Star Trek isn't canon. And it depends what you think of is canon. And I was like, if it appears on screen, it's canon. But they've introduced a multiverse, in which case that does strongly, I don't even think it implies, it straight up says the Discovery is not the Prime universe.
Well, okay, so if that's the case, I think one of the things you and I agree on is Discovery is canon. That's not the question. It is official Star Trek. Therefore,
Yeah.
it is official. It's official Star Trek because it was made by the current IP holder, which is CBS and Paramount, and therefore it is canon.
Yeah.
However, the question is it part of the Prime universe, which since the beginning, Alex Kurtzman is saying it is. And since the beginning, I have been saying, no, it's not, because you cannot give me a visual reboot and then change things and then say it's part of the Prime universe.
I mean, you could argue that it's no less canon than, say, like a time travel episode or something, because you, in theory, create a different chain of events from what we would consider, you know, like the Prime universe. So you say, well, so that's not canon then because it did or didn't happen, depending on which time travel. Do you know what I mean? It's like, no, it still happened. It's just that it's...
Yeah, so canon, what is canon is not an in-universe point of a point of information. Okay?
I think you
Whether
can argue
something
that,
is canon is not something you discuss in universe. It is something we, as viewers of a TV show, are trying to get our hands around whether it does exist as official Star Trek. Okay, so that's the first thing. Everyone needs to step back and say, is it canon? Yes, it's canon. There's no question about it that Discovery is canon. Mm-hmm. The important question is it Prime universe? That's the important question. Yeah. And what this episode has given it, what this episode is basically saying is it is a different universe than Lower Decks. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And the other thing is just to make the time travel point again, in theory, Kirk changed the history of Star Trek, of the Prime universe, a couple of times. I mean, if you think about it, from the early 21st century to when the events of Star Trek 3 happened, and the voyage home, there were no humpback whales on Earth. All right, they went back in time, got some humpback whales, then now there are humpback whales on Earth all of a sudden. So that is a change in the history of the Federation. Now they might say, well, that didn't really change anything because it's only humpback whales, but it, you know, the butterfly effect and that sort of thing. But in theory, then that creates a grandfather paradox, and we can get to that argument because the probe would never have come if the humpback whales were there and blah blah. So. I'm getting that totally wrong, aren't I? Because he brought the humpback whales from the future. There's the other, oh no, forget I said that. It's 11 o'clock at night here.
It's very confusing. I think you're bringing forward another point here in this conversation, which is what is the Prime timeline, right?
Yeah, because it does change if you've got time travel stuff.
It changes,
but point what I was trying to make.
But if we consider Enterprise, TOS, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, if that is our world of Prime universe, that is what we're calling the 616 in Marvel terms. Marvel calls it their 616. Yeah. Or in DC, it's Earth 1, right? This is our Prime universe. And what we have been saying, some of us have been saying, well, let's step back. When J.J. Abrams came out in 2009 with his 3 Star Trek films, he said in the first Star Trek film, thanks to Robert Orci, and I will always be thankful for a Star Trek writer in Robert Orci pushing for this. Robert Orci said, let's tell them it's an alternate timeline, right? Because what's happened is Spock's coming back has changed everything.
Yeah.
And they did that. So we know for a fact that the Kelvin universe is an alternate timeline. And you know what? No one cares. Everyone's like, cool. It is clearly an alternate universe. That's all good. He changed Spock going back, changed the past. Or not just Spock, but really Nero going back, changed the past. He destroyed the Kelvin. He killed the captain. He, he killed Spock. He killed Kirk's father.
Yeah, it creates a new timeline, technologically it seemed to have changed things as well. Because I mean, there's a big thing to say that they were more advanced within the Kelvin timeline because their assumption is maybe they got some of Nero's technology, and that's why the Enterprise is significantly bigger.
Yeah,
and a lot of the other technology seems to be more advanced within the Kelvin.
And that's cool. And just in the grand scheme of things, listen, if you're a TOS fan, you accept the multiverse because of Mirror Mirror.
Mhm.
Now we're saying it's not just one alternate universe. And we know there's now 2 new universes. And then if you go into TNG, into Parallels, the episode Parallels, we know there is a multiverse. So the question is it Discovery in the Prime timeline, or is Discovery in the multiverse?
I think that's fair to say, and I think that's where I basically got in my video when I was waffling on about this, was that it's a multiverse. Well, I basically got into the point of, is it just a joke that we shouldn't really be taken too seriously because this is a comedy cartoon at the end of the day? And is it just, I mean, I started the video by saying it's kicking the hornet's nest. I feel like they did it on purpose to set us all off, and which it's done beautifully. And they've gone out in a bang. Even though I think I'm 95% certain Lower Decks will be back on a Paramount Plus animated movie, but they've gone out in a bang. You know, because all the Trekkies are talking about this now. So it could just be a joke, and we shouldn't take it too seriously. I think, though, it is. I remember the other thing as well is they've tried to explain this in Discovery and other Star Treks that actually there are different types of Klingon,
right?
And that this is just like in the same way that we get different cultures and different ethnicities on this one, we get the different ethnicities in the Klingon Empire as well. So we just never seen them before. So they tried to explain it in a couple of episodes and implied that a few times. In Picard, I think they did. Was it Picard season 1? I think they did again in Picard season 3. But anyway, so there's that. But this strongly suggests it's an alternate timeline, in which case none of the events that have happened in Discovery affect the Prime timeline. And I only really care about the Prime timeline. So I'm like, no burn. Yay. Because I hate that. So
no,
it's like,
I agree with everything you just said there. First of all, it's a very purposeful decision on the part of the Lower Decks crew. It's Mike McMahon or whoever it is, it very purposely said, we're going to do something that is good. Everyone's going to talk about. We're going to create this multiverse, and then we're going to make the Discovery universe one of the alternate universes. And that's what they did. Now, they also showed proto-Klingons, but we know that already exists in TNG. Because remember, and so what they're doing is in that episode of Lower Decks, they're showing the multiverse and all these different realities. And in one of them, the proto-Klingons are the current Klingons, right? They never evolved beyond that. That's fine. But what they've done is, I think, and I think I think you hit it on the point. I very easily could see the Lower Decks production team going, let's make it clear what everyone kind of wants to know is that Discovery is not the Prime universe. Discovery is another universe. Now, here's another point for you. I would argue Lower Decks isn't Prime universe. Okay. Yeah. I would argue it's this other universe. And I think the thing we need to understand is that the multiverse is your friend. There's nothing wrong with it. I'll get back to J.J. Abrams in 2009, Star Trek 2009. Saying it was an alternate timeline allowed all the fans to go, okay, cool. They're not trying to change my Star Trek. Yeah. Right. And this is something that Star Trek has to grapple with because of all the different people producing it, as opposed to Star Wars. Star Wars has Lucasfilm, and Lucasfilm has one timeline, and they've expanded that timeline. They decided what's canon and what's not canon. When things moved over to Disney, they said the expanded universe is not canon, and then they've gone back and started incorporating the stuff they like. It's all good.
They picked and choose on that.
But what happened is, and I think this gets back to why CBS so mismanaged Star Trek. CBS didn't give a damn about the fans and what the fans think about Star Trek. And they literally gave Kurtzman the ability and the legal right not only to do whatever he wanted to do, but then own it, right? Because we know that, you know, anything that happened in any of the Kurtzman shows is the property of Kurtzman, not the property of Kurtzman. It's a Star Trek license, but go ahead.
It is complicated, but it's
complicated,
basically
but he has the rights to any characters created.
Anything original created in Secret Hideout Star Trek is owned by Secret Hideout.
That's right. So
but without Paramount, they can't do anything with it. If that makes sense.
That's exactly right. You know, that's exactly right. So in a way, it's kind of like Axanar. I own everything that has anything to do with Axanar. I can't do anything with it unless Paramount and CBS allow me to, right? You know, so it's the same idea with Kurtzman.
That's why people talk about sacking or sodding off Secret Hideout, and then I keep having to point out it means we'll get no more Strange New Worlds. And I'm like, why? We own now elements of Strange New Worlds is owned by Secret Hideout because it's original. Yes. That's why there are original characters in there. They're not stupid. And Strange New Worlds cannot carry on in its current form if Secret Hideout's deal is cancelled at the end in mid 2027, like it's supposed to, 26, like it's supposed to be.
Right now, there's a couple ways this could be approached. There's a couple ways that Skydance can approach this. They can say it's all part of the Kurtzman universe and it is done. Yeah. It is done and we're moving on. And then they're clean the slate and they will decide. I guarantee you they're not going to be as stupid as CBS was and give the next guy in charge of Star Trek that kind of carte blanche, right? Because otherwise obviously the whole idea of Discovery was just, the fact that it split the fandom in two and pissed off so many parts of the fandom. You know, we're like, wait a second, this isn't what 20 years, this is 20 years before the original series and it looks more advanced than Voyager. What's all of that stuff? So I think Skydance will come in and listen, I'm bullish on Skydance. Everyone knows it. I can't wait for Skydance to take over because they're taking over what amounts to a distressed asset in Paramount. And obviously it's wholly owned subsidiary CBS. And they're going to come in and they're going to clean house. And I already know they're going to clean house because if you go and look in the jobs that they're looking for everyone in business affairs, which is the legal division of a film studio. Film studios have their legal teams are called business affairs. They're the ones that write the contracts and determine rights and all of that stuff. And Skydance is on a tear trying to hire all those people. What does that mean? That means all the Paramount people are getting it jettisoned. All the CBS lawyers, they're all going to get jettisoned because Skydance wants to do it their way. And Skydance is not your classic Hollywood studio. They're a production company with its roots in Silicon Valley. Yep. And therefore, they're going to do things much different than the way Paramount and CBS are doing them. And being that they're buying a distressed asset in Paramount and CBS, their attitude is coming in is, we're going to clean house. We're going to clean the slate. We're not going to do what you guys did. What you guys did got us $15 billion in debt. I mean, the reason they're able to do the deal they are is because Paramount has been so mismanaged that it's $15 billion in debt. So, long way of saying is I think they're going to basically say Kurtzman Trek, alternate universe. And
have you seen the video when I talked about a lot of the people I get to speak to on Sci Trek and the Tachyon Pulse podcast. So I've had sort of like people that get to speak to me on what's going on. And I sort of got a few people that sort of working around marketing and PR and all this sort of thing. And a couple of people I got to speak to found out that basically Skydance have done a exploratory investigation sort of thing. I'm not quite sure how to call it. I can't remember what the term we used for it was. But basically, they've got a couple of Paramount people, a couple of Skydance people, and a couple of external people that have gone in and done an evaluation of all of Paramount's major franchises. And then they basically sent back suggestions back to Skydance about, so they looked at profitability, they looked at production costs, they looked at plans over the next 12 months, they looked at any data sort of from Paramount Plus on what people were watching and blah, blah, blah. So they looked at Yellowstone and they looked at Star Trek and they looked at things, and then they sent their recommendations back. For Star Trek, they recommended that the short-term financial impact of removing Secret Hideout from Star Trek would be offset within 3 years, and that even though there was less negativity in the fan base, there was still so much negativity that it was unfeasible to carry on. But there would be an initial cost of removing Skydance, because you've got to untangle Secret Hideout. You've got to untangle Secret Hideout from Star Trek, and there would be a cost to that. Their recommendation was that when, because I think it's August 2026, their deal ends, the current deal. So the idea was that instead of doing a carte blanche, like you said, another Star Trek deal, do individual contracts instead, which would be expensive. And then once the projects that are up and running that you want to keep are done, you end the contract basically with Secret Hideout, or you buy out Secret Hideout, and then again, short-term cost for a long-term benefit. The recommendation was to buy out Secret Hideout if it can be negotiated.
Yeah.
Which is what Warner Brothers wanted to do when they were looking at it. They wanted to buy out Secret Hideout, and they were basically going to give Kurtzman a couple of movie deal to sweeten him, to get him to step aside, give him a couple of quid, create Star Trek Studios in-house, and that would be the future of Star Trek. Merging Roddenberry Entertainment into it as well. That's what they are basically recommending. But they actually also stated that Star Trek should be brought in-house. That there would be, they looked at like a capacity thing, and they said CBS Studios is more than capable of just taking this in-house and start
with the right people.
Star Trek again.
Well,
they've got the people there.
Yeah, it's the right people, and it's probably not the. I mean, what will be interesting is who do they keep who has been working on Star Trek. Listen, I'm just, we talk about licensing. We could talk about how the licensing has been so abysmal, but you've got John Van Citters in charge of Star Trek licensing, or Mallory Levitt, the lawyer over there, who's overseeing. Are they going to keep these people? Are they going to put in their own people? I mean, again, these are the people that created the situation that they're in right now, which is, they're the ones that greenlit, authorized, have been responsible for the last 10 years of Star Trek.
Yeah. I think that the chances from talk to people, like I say, I don't know, because I don't think the decision's been made by Skydance, but you get a hint of where they're thinking. And again, what I've basically been told is that the chances are Skydance will have to give Secret Hideout an extension to the current contract, because they don't get in until mid-2025. They would basically have 12 months until the current Skydance deal's done. And it actually, from the summer of 2025, you go into the last year of the contract with the current thing. And the way the contract's done is that basically Secret Hideout can't start anything new. They can't do a few other things, because it's supposed to like a wind down period. It's sort of like written into the contract, apparently. The way it would be, basically, it basically means Skydance just don't have enough time to decide what they're doing with Star Trek, negotiate with somebody new, and then do it. And also it would mean that the Strange New Worlds would have to end. Even though the current contract they have means that anything is in production at the point where the contract ends, they can finish, and they'll be paid to finish. So in theory, if they got season 5 of Strange New World started, they could finish it before the contract ended. So there are like ways to like get a bit of an extension for Secret Hideout. But it also means that Skydance can cancel whatever they don't like.
Right.
Starfleet Academy. If that survives, I would be shocked.
I would be shocked as well.
But one of the other things that this sort of consultancy group that they put together that went in and sort of like looked at all the different franchises is they did ask the question, why are you cancelling Lower Decks? It's a profitable show. It makes no sense to cancel it. Why have you not done Legacy when all of the data shows that that's what fans want? And why are you pushing forward with Starfleet Academy? But the main thing they said with Starfleet Academy is, why the hell are you giving it the budget you're giving it? They reckon that's going to top $12 million an episode, between 12 and 15 even for some episodes. But it'll average $12 to $13 million an episode, which is more than Picard cost. Which is just, and apparently this consultant, because what they did was apparently they sort of wrote a report, and then they wrote like a section at the end was like questions. This is what we don't understand, sort of the decision making process. And I got to see like an abridged version of this report, and I'm looking at it thinking, but yeah, 100%. Why are they behaving the way they do? Why are they looking at doing a sitcom? The way I'm looking at it is they're cancelling Lower Decks to give them an excuse to do a sitcom. Nobody wants a fucking Star Trek sitcom.
No.
It's stupid. But I think their thinking is, well, we can't have Lower Decks and a sitcom, and we really want to do a sitcom because Alex Kurtzman thinks he's funny and he's going to write this bloody thing.
Listen, there's Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, great show. Lower Decks, great show. Prodigy, listen, I haven't gotten through it myself, but I like people who say it's the best of the Kurtzman lot.
Watch the last couple of episodes. It's great. It's just good Star Trek.
Yeah,
it goes on a bit. There's a bit too much. It goes on a bit, but
but it's good stuff. I mean, Lower Decks especially. Listen, I watched the last 2 episodes of this season of Lower Decks. I kind of fell out of it after season 3. I just never got into season 4 and 5, and I will go back and watch it now just because I've watched the last 2 episodes. And listen, the finale was as good as any Star Trek series finale. The last episode of Lower Decks.
Season 4 is the same. Season 4 is the same. The finale
I was
as good
blown
as anything.
away by how good that was. I was blown away by how emotional it was. How I was like, oh my God, this has all the feels in it. This is, it was not only a great episode, everything, but they wrapped it up in the new starbase and the new captain, and it was awesome. I was blown away by it. Why are we not getting more? I don't want to see Academy. I don't know anyone who does want to see Academy. Unfortunately, it's a vanity project for Kurtzman rather than a business decision. And this is the problem with giving one guy all the power, because no one at even CBS as with who you have there, no one would say that's a good decision. If you left, but CBS is legendary for making bad decisions about Star Trek in the last 20 years. Axanar being another example of a bad decision, suing us. But Skydance, if the decision was up to Skydance a year ago, they would have said, greenlight Legacy, screw this Academy thing. We're not doing this comedy nonsense, and we're going to keep going with Lower Decks and Prodigy and Strange New Worlds. There's your slate, 4 shows. That's
I'll tell you what, the plan was
what decision maker would have done.
Paramount, before the big redundancies and a couple of the big executives went at the start of, was it March or April last year? There was a big voice, I forget the executive's name. He was one of the first top guys to go get sacked.
Where, at Paramount?
At Paramount, yeah.
Oh, the old CEO?
The guy directly beneath him. He was in charge of scripted material, I think. I'll have to Google it. I'll get his name for you. But anyway, he was apparently a big voice that he was really unhappy with the way Star Trek was going ahead. He said, look, it's supposed to be the jewel in the crown of Paramount Plus. This was, I think, around the time sort of like Tombstone was sort of overtaking it, but at the time that was the thing. Star Trek on Paramount Plus, all in one place. That was the big sale. And he sort of said, look, it's confusing. We've got too many different timelines. The problem is Trekkies understand it. People that watch the show week in, week out understand it. But that's only about 40% of your regular viewership. Right. You then get another 40% that are sort of like that come in and out that will watch it, but they might not catch every episode, sort of thing. And then you've got another 20% or so, which just sort of like flipping it out quite sporadically. And that's basically your fan base. The problem is because you've got loads of different timelines and things going on.
And it's not.
What is it? We had 4 timelines.
Yeah, it's not episodic. It's serialized, which is a problem for what you just said. All those people from that other 60% want episodic, not serialized, because you don't want to
because you can't flip in and out of it. You don't know what the hell's going on. Right. So you end up alienating a big chunk of your audience. Yeah. So what he was saying was, I want one timeline. We want legacy. And we basically want to focus on legacy moving forwards. We'll let Strange New Worlds run out after season 5, which is the plan anyway. It's only going to be 5 seasons, I'm afraid. If they don't care if you love it or not, that's all you're getting. We'll let Strange New Worlds run out. Discovery's ending, and then we'll focus on the prime timeline sort of thing, and we'll focus on, because this would have been before Picard season 3. So when sort of the person I know was speaking to him. So, and he was a big component of that. And he was dead set against doing anything else following Discovery, any spin-off, whatever. And he was basically demanding it. And then they started making redundancies and they started, the sales sort of everything. But now nobody's watching what's Secret Hideout doing. Because it's like Mommy's gone out.
Right.
Because nobody cares. Skydance are coming in
because all the top people are going to be moved out. They're going to get fired.
So they're basically they're not being allowed to green light anything because Skydance there's sort of like a gentleman's agreement apparently that nothing over a certain threshold will be agreed without Skydance's agreement, and Skydance won't agree it. So some of the things that we're hearing at Paramount are announcing at the moment, like Top Gun 3 and things like this, that they're sort of like moving forwards with, is because Skydance have signed off on it. Star Trek can't greenlight anything because Skydance won't agree to it.
And just so everyone who's out there understands what's happening is, right now Skydance owns the controlling interest in Paramount Global.
No, they've got to be exact. There's an agreement in place for them to purchase. They don't actually own it yet.
Hasn't the deal with Sherry Redstone already concluded?
It's agreed and concluded, but it's not done. It won't be done until it's the actual FTC and all that sort of thing are done. So they don't actually take ownership probably until the summer.
Okay, so here's my question though. There's 2 deals. One deal is the purchase of all of the 73% of the Class A stock from Sherry Redstone by Skydance or whatever the entity is. Is it because Larry Ellison is the one who's putting up the money for that? The $2-3 billion.
It's actually they're buying Thingy Entertainment. National Amusements, which is the conglomerate, and it's not just Skydance, it's Skydance and Red Kite.
Yeah, the venture capitalists.
Yeah, so they're buying that, which takes control of Paramount, and then Paramount will buy Secret Hideout. Skydance. Paramount will buy Skydance, which will then merge the 2 companies.
Right. Okay, so that's 2 different deals. So everyone understands. One is the purchase of National Amusements by Skydance et al., which is the controlling interest in Paramount.
Which is almost done. It's agreed, but not actually sort of like final.
Okay, so the check hasn't passed.
But then that cannot be finalized until the FTC and all the regulatory bodies agree.
Gotcha.
So nothing is. This is exactly the same as when Amazon bought MGM.
Yeah.
It was agreed for like 18 months, but Amazon did not own MGM until the FTC regulatory finally agreed it. And then it also got signed off and Amazon were like officially in charge. But for basically 18 months, they basically were.
Right.
But apparently there's loads of rules and laws about how these companies go through this merger process and what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. And so on the day the FTC regulator finalized the MGM Amazon sale, that's the day that the MGM CEO resigned and and Amazon took over officially, sort of thing.
Yeah. And so my understanding that I heard was that this whole deal supposedly has a drop dead date of July 1st. So we've been hearing that the deal is going to be done in the first half of the year. I don't know.
It should be, but it's based on, in theory, the regulatory body shouldn't be too much of a problem, because if this isn't like when Disney bought Fox, that took like 2 years to get through the regulatory body.
That's two big studios.
Yeah, because it was two big things, and they said, look, what's the competition implication?
Right.
Blah blah. Amazon took about 8 or 9 months to get through theirs because it's the same thing. They were a bit worried. The only thing was because it was a big streaming provider, but they said, well, MGM didn't really have a streaming service.
Yeah.
So that was a bit different, and MGM didn't really own any studio space, didn't really own any buildings. It just really owned IP. So that was a bit different. This is the same thing again. Skydance is a tiny studio compared to Paramount. So I mean, it's
not even a studio. It's technically a production company.
It's a production company, so it's not even a studio. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it really shouldn't go through. It shouldn't take much.
It's sort of like a big corporation buying one of their distributors.
Exactly. Well, this is why Paramount is going to buy Skydance rather than this because that's the way it's going to work. It's a merger, actually. It's not really it's a merger, but
it's a merger. Yeah, it's a merger. It's a stock swap. So yeah. But the thing that for me that I love about Skydance is just knowing the legacy of the legacy of Skydance. Because if you go to their website, it's an incredibly impressive website, right? And David Ellison, I got a lot of respect for David Ellison because listen. The story of the rich kid who doesn't make anything of himself because he's living off daddy's money does not apply to David Ellison. Here's a guy.
He's had his hand in a lot of different pies over the years.
That guy is aces, and he may have daddy's money backing up his deals, but Larry is not going to back any deal that's not good. And David Ellison has done an amazing job with Skydance, and I can't think of any. When you heard of all the deals of who wanted to buy Paramount, if Warner Brothers, it would have been a disaster. If Sony bought it, would have been a disaster. If whoever the guys were that came in that wanted, I didn't think anyone they would have picked the bones of Paramount and it would have been a disaster. David Ellison's got a vision, and I think he's got will have the team that will take Paramount and take that studio and make the most of it. So I'm hoping for good things for Star Trek.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, I think it's a perfect thing because I mean, you've got one of the biggest software companies, or is it hardware company, Oracle, isn't it?
No, it's a software company.
Big Silicon company, big Silicon Valley company, like you said, coming in. So the business side of it, they should have the expertise. But from an entertainment side of things, Skydance has been one of the best production companies in the last 20 years. Oh, yeah. They've got some really, really good stuff on their books. They've produced some bloody good movies over the years and TV series. So I mean, I don't have any
gaming now too, and
I don't have any worries about Skydance at all.
Yeah,
and they've got good. Well, going back to their relationship, what I understand, again, a lot of this is gossip and rumor, and because without actually speaking to people directly, it's very hard to tell. But what I hear from lots of different people is Alex Kurtzman is not very easy to work with, and one person basically said to me, and again, it was partly his opinion, but he does work for he used to work for Paramount, was straight up that there are people that don't like what's going on with Star Trek at the moment, and they 100% just blame Alex Kurtzman for it. And then he does things like refuses to do Legacy. And the rumor I keep hearing, and I really hope it's not true, because if it's true, it's so petty, is that he doesn't want to do Legacy because he wasn't involved in Picard season 3 and it did really, really well, and he's jealous. And if that can't be, every time I hear it from 3 or 4 different sources or 3 or 4 different people, I'm like, it can't be true. It just can't. And one of these things I'm thinking, and these are people that are independent to each other. I hear it in comments occasionally, but I think it's somewhere like Midnight Express or something has talked about it. And so then it gets into the ether of the fan base sort of thing. But I hear it from people that work in the industry that say that, he's a very difficult man to work with, and that Skydance don't want to work with him. And if that's true, the future of Star Trek is not going to be Secret Hideout unless the rest of the Secret Hideout team oust him.
Yeah, and I don't know the corporate situation there. I think Kurtzman is the guy in charge.
Difficult. You basically have to set fire to him, I think, to get him out of them.
Yeah, I think what will happen is, if whatever it is, whether it's Lower Decks or whether it's Legacy, if Skydance wants something, if they say, we want more Lower Decks, they're going to, they're either going to do a buyout with Kurtzman on Lower Decks, or they're going to say, okay, your aspect of it is blah blah blah. Here's a license. We'll give you a licensing fee, whatever. The same with Legacy, because obviously some of those characters are were created by through the Kurtzman show.
Yeah.
So it's possible that they bring those things back, but I don't know. Listen, I've kind of given Kurtzman a wide berth. I am not from the school of thought that Kurtzman is raping my childhood with the way he's destroyed Star Trek. I'm not from that. I'm not
that either.
But I have been very clear that he made a couple mistakes with Discovery. The biggest one saying it was prime timeline. If he had just said, look, this isn't prime timeline, this is an alternate. Okay, good. You can do whatever hell you want, but I'm not. Those were my issues. However, I considering how obnoxious CBS has been to us over the past specifically 5 years, but really since the lawsuit, and including the lawsuit, it would have been nice if Kurtzman had reached out and said, hey, keep doing what you're doing. We'd appreciate it, blah blah blah, because I know he knows about Axanar. As one of my friends who worked on the show said to me, I said to him, does Alex Kurtzman know about Axanar? And my friend who works up there was like, oh, Alec, he's like, everyone knows about Axanar in Toronto, So I was like, oh, well, that was very nice. That was very nice to hear. And we actually heard that there was a possibility that there was an Ares model going to show up on the bar scene in season 3 of Picard, but it didn't happen. But nonetheless, it would have been nice if Kurtzman had reached out and said something to me or whatever, or called off the legal hounds or whatever, but that never happened.
That was never going to be his decision, though, was it? Is the thing.
I'm sorry?
It would never be his decision.
No.
That would be a CBS legal Paramount top.
Yeah, but it would have been nice to have him at least pulling for us. Nonetheless, that's neither here nor there. I don't hold anything. I simply view his Star Trek as Star Trek, and how do I feel about it? And so it is a shame that we're not getting Legacy, and I honestly don't think we are. Someone made a good point before. I've been pulling for an anthology show. Someone on I was interviewed on I think it was Shuttle Bay 4 podcast, and they asked me. They said, okay, if they asked you what to do, what would you say they should do? Coming in, and I said, an anthology series. Before you commit to one crew or do an anthology series with and maybe they're 90-minute episodes or 2-hour episodes, whatever, and just do a bunch of different things. Take many ideas and try it out. And and someone here made a great point. Like, have have John Delancey as Q introduce it, kind of like, Jeffrey Wright's Watcher does in Marvel's What If, right?
Yeah.
The Watcher is telling you about across the multiverse or whatever. It's really interesting. And, the Watchers play that kind of role in the Marvel universe. Well, Delancey could do that, and it would be awesome. And people would love it.
Federation is so vast. You could be astonishing.
You think
Not
of
a
it,
cheap show to produce.
What's that?
Not a cheap show to produce there, Alec.
No,
That'd be quite expensive.
It wouldn't be, because you'd have to decide on a time period and everything so you could reuse sets and so on and so forth. But nonetheless, I think that and this is, again, back to the problem, back to the mistake that Kurtzman made, was trying to tell us it was prime timeline when we all knew it wasn't.
Yeah.
Again, the multiverse is your friend. I will keep saying it. There's this multiverse where the books, like when Pocket Books decided we're going to wrap up this literary series we've been running with for 20 years because it doesn't mesh with Discovery Universe, and they came out with that book Coda and basically wiped that universe out. I was like, why did you do that? You didn't have to do that. It was that literary universe was so rich and so wonderful and had so many great characters that, and it's just a shame that they did. The multiverse is your friend. Embrace it all. Just like the original Star Trek animated series from the 70s. That's another universe, right? It may not be canon to the Prime universe, but it's part of a multiverse, right? That's another multiversal universe. Yeah. So I just think that they should embrace it.
That's it. I don't agree with you on that one. I hate multiverse. I think it's really annoying. I think it's lazy. But I mean, it's all taste. I just think I don't like it in Marvel either. I think or DC. I think it's really annoying. I just think it's a plot device that gets you out of a lot of problems. I would have preferred it just come and done Prime Universe, but like you said there, I think his biggest problem was to say that this is Prime. But the problem he did was, I want to do Prime Universe, but I want to bring all of these ideas I had for the J.J. Abrams stories and bring them into this. Like the Klingons, a cut and paste directly from the J.J. Abrams Klingons from Into Darkness, pretty much.
They're Neville Page designs.
Yeah,
I would argue they're worse. I thought the design.
They're an evolution of it. They're an evolution of that design, I think. But things like the star blowing up and destroying Romulus, which is a stupid storyline from the first Star Trek. I don't know how big that supernova was, but I don't think that the creators quite understood how supernova work. The only way that Romulus is destroyed is if it's the Romulan star that goes off.
Yes.
But apparently it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
So that makes no sense. But they dragged that into the first season of Picard. Star Trek fans, like, I was talking about this in a live I did earlier on Sci Trek. And there's always like, is Doctor Who sci-fi or is and I said, like, look, Doctor Who is science fiction, but it's like little science, big fiction. And like you get shows like The Expanse and Star Trek where it's big science, little fiction sort of thing. And what I mean that is that the science is important. More, it's a bit more realistic. It's a bit more based in something, and maybe not reality, but like at least a theory of something. There's a lot in original Star Trek and TNG. You get a Dyson sphere or something because it's based on a real theoretical thing, and it's just big science, little fiction. I think Star Trek now is a little bit more big fiction, little science. But anyway, that's a different argument. Star Trek fans, though, we're quite educated. We know a little bit of the sciencey stuff. I think Star Trek fans are the people that read New Scientist and things like this as well. We're geeks, we're nerds. Which was somebody else saying to me, like, they keep going on about that quote that Leonard Nimoy said about, because our canon is just something for people to worry about. It just stops people from telling interesting stories. I'm like, yeah, to a degree, but at the same time, I've literally read the Enterprise D technical manual and like took it seriously. I'm thinking, oh my God, that's how an antimatter injector works. You can't have that level of geek and then go, yeah, but we don't have to worry about canon, because you're going to piss people off. It's like, but I don't think we should be like really anal about it. But at the same time, there are certain things you like go, Kirk and Pike don't know each other. They didn't know each other in Menagerie. We saw that specifically, that Kirk doesn't know him. So why has Kirk turned up in every bloody other episode of Strange New Worlds? That sort of thing annoys me.
Well, and that is, but you can get away with that in an alternate universe.
In a multiverse, because in the multiverse they could know each other.
Right.
And that's where they're going with Strange New Worlds, because Pike ain't going to end up in that wheelchair in Strange New Worlds.
Well, listen, this is also what Akiva Goldsmith said. When asked about the episode where Khan is a boy in the 2020s, he said, "Well, listen, we're trying to push the dates forward, because we know certain things haven't happened yet."
Yeah,
and which I'll give Akiva Goldsmith credit for saying that, but what he's doing is acknowledging that they are an alternate.
They are changing history.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what he's saying, is that they're acknowledging that, and that's okay. But I think the thing that they didn't quite understand is Star Trek is not our future. It is a future.
It's fiction still as well. We have to remember, it's not real.
It's not real, and we did not have eugenics wars. We did not have orbital, space orbital bombardment platforms that Gary 7 had to take care of. There's all these things that did not happen. That we'll see about World War III. But so Star Trek is not our universe. It's a universe, right?
Yeah.
And the prime timeline is a universe, and you can decide to play in that universe or not. And what Kurtzman has done is not played in that universe. Whatever he's saying, and thankfully the new brass at Skydance will change and decide to do whatever they want.
Yeah, it does feel like they're almost building up towards Secret Hideout. Like, we're losing this. So let's just get ready that we can that we're not going to completely lose our legacy, and that they almost don't want Skydance to sort of go, right, okay, well, forget that happened, do something completely different. They're almost again using the word legacy a lot. They're almost thinking about their legacy and going, well, let's just set it up so that they can in 18 months when we lose this contract, they can move forward with something else, and it's people won't just go, well, we can forget about Discovery now forever. But to go back to the main reason for the question, yeah, Discovery is canon. We've agreed that. I totally agree with you. It is canon, but it is multiverse. So the question I want to sort of say is, why did Lower Decks decide to do this? Because it would have been within agreement. This isn't just Mike McMahon doing this off his own back. This would have been within agreement from Secret Hideout. So in that case, if they don't, and then it's a strategy. So was it just a joke that we should not worry about? Because they do that all the time in Star Trek now. They do stuff, and then we just like go, don't worry about it. It's just a joke. And I'm just like pulling my hair out, thinking, no, you've said it now. It's canon. But so is it just a joke, or are they like seriously saying this? Yes, this is a multiverse. And Picard might be prime timeline because Picard references TNG. So Picard is prime timeline. Lower Decks is prime timeline because that references TNG and Voyager and everything else. But Discovery and then Starfleet Academy aren't.
Well, okay. So let me play counterpoint here. I don't think Picard is prime timeline.
It references TNG though.
Well, just fine. It can reference TNG. But that doesn't mean that it's prime timeline. I mean, Discovery references prime timeline, right? Listen, in Star Trek Beyond references prime timeline in going back and showing that what happened, before the Romulan War and the Xindi and all that. Here's the deal.
That was before the Kelvin timelines. No, the Xindi would have been.
Right.
Yeah, that's before the timeline split, though, wasn't it? So that would have been prime.
Right, because in the Kelvin timeline, the Hobus Nebula or the Hobus star blows up, supernova, destroys Romulus and everything. Okay, That's not prime timeline. That is Kelvin universe.
Yeah.
Kelvin maybe, and we don't know that the Hobus Nebula went supernova, or whatever it was called. The Hobus star went supernova in the prime timeline. We don't know that. We know in a timeline that, and then Nero came back in the Narada, and then Spock followed all that whole thing. But when they're referencing, it's just a universe.
Yeah, we don't know that it's the same. Yeah,
right.
Okay.
So then when
it could be a different Picard, is what we're saying.
Here's the reason I'm going to tell you Picard. Here's the thing that says that Picard is not prime timeline. When in the first season of Picard walks into Starfleet headquarters. He looks up and he sees an Enterprise, and it's the Enterprise from Strange New Worlds. It is not the TOS Enterprise.
I did not notice that. I remember the D.
Yeah, the D's there, and then they show the Enterprise, and the Enterprise is Anson Mount's Enterprise. It's Pike's Enterprise, and so we also know that
Pike's Enterprise is supposed to be the prime timeline Enterprise, wasn't it? It's supposed to be an earlier version of it.
Yeah, well, we know that that's all changed. I mean, I will argue Strange New Worlds is not prime timeline.
Yeah. Well, when they designed it, I remember them talking about the designing it. They designed it specifically to look like an older version of the end. But they couldn't make it look the Enterprise from this TV series because they kind of had to forget that. But they wanted it to look like an earlier version of the movie Enterprise.
Of the Kelvin universe Enterprise?
No, of the movies of the
movie TMP
so
Enterprise.
They tried to make it look like a slightly less.
Which it does.
So then the movie motion picture Enterprise is supposed to be a slightly updated version. So it's supposed to look like that. They said we can't make it look like the TV series, the original TV series, because it just looks stupid. Right. So they tried to do that. But it is supposed to be an earlier version of Kirk's Enterprise from the movies.
Now here's a good point. The USS New Jersey is at is a TOS Constitution class ship at the museum in season 3 of Picard. That's a great point, which would tend to indicate that season 3 is definitely trying to reference that it is prime timeline, right? So I mean, you could make all sorts of arguments about maybe each season is different, whatever. But season 3 of Picard is definitely trying to tell you that it fits into the prime timeline.
Yeah, which is then bringing back all the legacy characters and everything like that. I think, I mean, the reality is the producers have made loads of mistakes. That's what the reality is. Picard season 1, less season 2, but definitely season 1 was again influenced by Kurtzman. We know that he was the main thing. He did a lot of the writing, he did a lot of the story. So and he again brought some of his ideas from JJ into that series. And killing Picard and creating the android and all of that nonsense is just stinks of Kurtzman and his thing. So I think season 1 was Picard, Kurtzman. I hear Amazon sort of came in and went, we're not paying for this again if you don't sort of change a few things. And Kurtzman was forced to step back a little bit, and other people came in, and that was when Metalis came in and wrote a lot of season 2, and then got the job for season 3, and then season 3 became properly because of Metalis, basically. Yeah. Because he was a bit more on the ball when it came to creating something. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, you wouldn't have a hard time convincing me that season 3 of Picard is prime timeline. I was like, okay, I would say, it fits in perfectly. We all want it to be.
But season 1 doesn't. I agree with that.
Season 1 and even season 2. Although I'm just going to reference again, season 2, as big a mess as season 2 of Picard was, and it was a mess. That ending, that exchange between Q and Picard is one of the greatest scenes in all of Star Trek.
I nearly cried. I
cry all the time when I watch. That's like freaking watching Field of Dreams for me.
I actually had an argument with Terry Metalis about this.
You did?
Yeah. He got quite annoyed at me. I basically said, how do you ruin the Borg? And he sort of his attitude was sort of like, well, we didn't, and he was trying to defend the decisions. I'm like, no, you're completely new to the Borg, and they don't make sense. And when I sort of pointed out the error with Jurati, that if she'd have just gone, it's me, at the start of that episode would have been done. It would have only been one episode, and the series would have been done. But she doesn't. She attacks for some reason. No reason. And he sort of went and stopped talking to me. Like,
no, it is. That is a great question, because that is the big plot hole, right?
It doesn't make any sense at all.
It doesn't make any sense.
And then I did ask, why did you design a giant space Borg vagina? And he was just like, that's just stupid. And I'm like, well, that's what it looks like. But I did point out as well. So the Jurati's Borg are supposed to be like good Borg. And I'm like, okay. So what you're telling me then is the millions of Borg that she would have had to assimilate to build that enormous spaceship, they all did that willingly, did they? And he was sort of like, well, we don't know, do we? And I'm like, well, I mean, come on. It's logical. They can't, they're still Borg. They might be separate from the other collective, but they're still Borg. And she still assimilated and enslaved millions of people. But we're then supposed to believe that the Federation lets them join. You've got that from the game. An idea of the game that eventually in the future the Borg join the Federation, or we ally ourselves with the Borg at some point in the future. But that was to do with the game and beta canon. Don't do it in the show just because you thought it was a cool thing. And then, but season 2 started really well. The first episode was so good. I was just like, oh, I love the Stargazer. This is so cool. And then it just went off a fucking cliff.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. But this is where you get, and I see people in the comments talking about it. Canon. What is canon? I think we should all need to agree that canon is what is official Star Trek. However, that's an outside view of viewers, what viewers think of, and what the studios think of the shows.
Yeah. In
universe, it's about, is it prime timeline? Yeah. Is it an alternate prime?
I think a canon is what appears on screen. Yeah. That is the thing. Beta canon is what is then like comics, books, things like that. That is a very broad term for canon and beta canon. So you can have canon that is, and that was my trying to using time travel and different events as an example, is that you can have canon that has multiple variations of the same event, if that makes sense. So because through time travel, something's changed, but both events are still canon because they both appeared on screen.
And the best, I was just watching a video about Babylon 5. Perfect example of using of an expansive view of canon. I mean, because JMS basically turned story outlines over to authors who wrote books. And his view is those books are canon. That's the way the story would have gone. So it's
canon.
Yeah. So no, he's like, he'll say that's part of the Babylon 5 universe. And so that, you know, that's some way to canonize something. In Star Trek, we don't have that as much. We really, they really are like, canon, what's on screen. If it's not on screen, it's not canon. And that's where we have beta canon books and you know, FASA and so forth. So it's all something that caters to our geekiness, to our obsessiveness, to our love of the franchise, right? We have these conversations because we love the franchise, and I think it's worth having these conversations. So
I just would love to be a fly on the wall to when they made this decision on. I just love to understand why they decided to do this, because as I said, they'd already tried to explain the different Klingons. They'd already tried to do it on screen and explain that there are different Klingons. So why do this now? Because they've already tried to fix their mistake. And now it's sort of like, it's like they've tried to fix the mistake and then they thought, screw it. It's not worked. And just do this. And I think we're going to see a lot more multiverse.
And again, to your point, if this is Kurtzman saying that's okay, we just it goes along with the way they're treating Strange New Worlds. They're basically they don't have. You haven't heard anyone from Secret Hideout saying Strange New Worlds is Prime Universe. You've actually heard Akiva Goldsmith say the opposite. Say it's really not. We're really changing things. Although he hasn't said, the magic words, alternate timeline or alternate universe.
Yeah.
He's basically said alternate timeline, which is basically that's basically
if the show goes much further, they've kind of got to, because they're getting quite close now to events we've seen in TOS.
Yes.
I think it can't go past 5 seasons. Is that right? I think that they're 5 or 6 years before TOS. I did know the dates.
Yeah,
it's not long before. So yeah, they're getting close to what would be TOS. So it can't. That was one of the things that that guy that I was talking to says he hated. Apparently, this Paramount executive hated Strange New Worlds. He thought it was the stupidest idea. But he was overruled, sort of thing. But he says that it's really playing with fire. And basically his argument was, if we get this right, it's brilliant. But if we get this wrong, the basic Trekkies, us older Trekkies particularly, as far as we're concerned, the original series is the Bible. It's like it's the ultimate thing. It's like. And we're pissing on it by doing the show. It says doing the season 2 of Discovery, that was great. I think most people loved that. I think maybe we loved it a bit too much, unless we demanded Strange New Worlds. But doing that was great. Then trying to run an entire series is just dangerous, because if you get it wrong, you piss on the original series, and that is sacrilege. And but to be honest, that's what they're doing. I know you said earlier you love Strange New Worlds. I have a love-hate relationship with Strange New Worlds.
I absolutely know where you're coming from, right?
Oh, I like brilliant episode, awful episode, brilliant episode, awful episode.
It's like right, you're turning the Gorn into xenomorphs now. It's like, oh,
the Gorn do my nut. And I'm saying, what is the point of having a villain that is so terrifying? Don't get me wrong, this is a really terrifying villain that is going to be a member of the Federation. We've seen the Gorn sat in the bloody Federation conference rooms, like the Gorn representative. I'm like, okay, how are we getting from Strange New Worlds to that?
Where's that? Where are they in the Federation Council?
In one of the movies, you see a Gorn sat in the, when they're doing the panning shot.
Really?
There's a Gorn just sat there. They're supposed to be members of the Federation in the future.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I agree with you there, and it is inconsistent, and I think the fact that they brought Kirk in, I think that's just a cheat. I think they cheated. Say, oh, why don't we bring Kirk in? Listen, we know. A matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, is Kirk not in the menagerie? Say that he met Pike, or that
I think he says they make it clear he doesn't know him,
right?
He doesn't know him well.
I'd have to go back.
He does sort of say they'd met.
Yeah,
I think it does sort of imply they met.
I could have sworn he said he met him when he became fleet captain or something like that.
Yeah, it was implied that he'd sort of met him. Yeah, but it was a formal thing or something. But he didn't know him.
But
that's the whole point, isn't it? Spock is like loyal to Pike and is going against orders and whatever, and Kirk is sort of like, I don't know the guy. Why are we sticking our necks out for some guy I don't know? But you could argue that actually, if you watch Strange New Worlds, Pike and Kirk don't actually spend a lot of time on screen together.
No, they don't. They don't.
Kirk is there all the time, but he doesn't actually interact with Pike an awful lot.
Again, I just think it was lazy writing. I think it was a crutch, and I think they could have spent that time with other characters who I'd like to see. I mean, I love the engineer. I love Carol Kane. Is that?
Yeah, I was a big fan of that. I don't like the way she speaks. I found it a little irritating. I loved her as the fairy in Scrooged, but and I know that's just how she speaks. But I find her a little irritating. I'll be happy when Scotty comes.
Yeah.
And I found the character a bit confusing. It felt like they kept forgetting their own rules. They like established rules for this character or this species, and they sort of forgot about them. And like, oh well, shit, we know she's supposed to be really old, isn't she? Oh, we better.
Yeah, yeah. It's
And
like,
just,
it's kind of like Guinan, huh?
yeah. But they seem to, yeah, exactly. Oh well, Guinan, I suppose they weren't exactly consistent with Guinan either, were they? But yeah, they didn't seem to. I don't know. It just seemed to be quite a confused character. But at least she wasn't a singing Klingon. So
yeah, I know. I know. Well, listen, we've gone over, and it's been a great chat. Thank you so much. I want to make sure everyone knows. Please check out not only Sci Trek, where Jay brings you daily news about what's happening in the sci-fi world, and he will endlessly talk about Stargate, which is a love of mine as well. I'm waiting for one of these days he's going to tell us that there actually is Stargate in production.
Oh God, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Oh gosh, but also he's just started a new podcast called the Tachyon Pulse Podcast. So make sure you check that out too. And Jake, great to have you on. I mean, this was just so much fun to geek out, and for all the fans we had out there who joined us for the live stream, and hopefully if you're rewatching it on our YouTube channel, make sure you check out Sci Trek, Tachyon Pulse. We'll put the links down below. You can just check them out on YouTube, and it's just a great source. That way they'll always pop up in your YouTube feed, and you'll get all the latest on all sorts of science fiction information from Jay. Jay, anything before we close this out? Anything else you want to add?
Nah, you're right. No, thank you for inviting us on. And then, as I said, I will sit and talk Star Trek all night. I've got to get up in the morning, and it's on midnight here. So, thank you for.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, but I'll have talked for another 3 hours quite happily. Give me half a chance.
Well, we'll do that another time. We'll just start early in the day, so it doesn't push it. Everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure you watch Lower Decks. Make sure you watch those two, the whole season, because it's really fantastic. And that way, it registers another person watching it on. So Paramount generates the numbers and finds out that everyone really likes Lower Decks. In the meantime, make sure. Listen, go to the Axanar.com. Our store is open now. Go in the upper right-hand corner. You click store. You get all sorts of cool Axanar swag, like hats and T-shirts and the likes. And everyone, thank you so much. I hope you've all had a wonderful holiday season. And we are on the cusp of a new year. So please have a happy and safe new year. And as always, my friends, live long and prosper. Jay, thank you so much for joining us. We will stay tuned to your channels.
Happy New Year.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us.
Oh,